This is Don Dokken, and you're listening to Talking About Rock. Keep listening.
Okay, today's guest is the founder and singer of the legendary Band Dokken. The original lineup included George Lynch on lead guitar, Mick Brown on drums, and Jeff Pilson on bass. The band has had several singles that charted on the Billboard Top 100, such as Alone Again, In My Dreams, and Burning Like a Flame. They've sold over 10 million albums worldwide. Here to chat with us about the music video released for the 1978 song Hard Rock Woman, let's welcome Don Dokken. Don, how are you?
How you doing? Good. I'm looking at that picture without a beard and a baby face. Jeez Louise.
Right? You were pretty young back in the day there in the early 70s, right?
Yeah, I was very young.
Definitely. Well, your songs and lyrics have definitely always stood out. Tell us a little bit about putting together this music video. I was reading a little bit about it. There's some history behind this.
This was a 45 only. I don't think nobody makes those anymore, right?
Yeah, pretty much, right?
I mean, you'd have to be a hardcore collector. But like I told some people, I just used to live in Manhattan Beach, about 2 blocks from a guitar store. So, I go in there every day as a kid in a candy shop, and I jam on all these cool, like, vintage guitars. And it turned out that the store belonged to Drake Levin, who was a guitar player in a famous band in the 60s called Paul Revere and the Raiders. They had a lot of big hits. They even had their own TV show for a while. It was called Where the Action Is. So we just became friends, longtime friends, and then we just kept, he knew people in Europe, and he put me in the studio, and so we moved forward, that's what we wanted to do.
Excellent. All right, very cool. Let's talk a little bit about Dokken history here. So you've had some great tracks, like I was saying. Definitely a highlight was the 1986 Dream Warriors track. It was a song for the movie soundtrack for the Nightmare on Elm Street, 3 Dream Warriors. What can you share with us about that project, about that time?
Well, I think that was the most successful I think they moved to it up to 8 of them, I think.
Yeah, they had quite a few after that. But yeah, that was hugely successful when that came out. And it hit at a good time. You got some MTV coverage out of it, the movie coverage. It was kind of a double deal on that one, right?
Lightning strikes, sometimes for somebody, if you're lucky. And I don't know how, how it went, how it did, but, it just... Well, and there's a girl in the video, and she looks very young. Her name is Patricia Arquette, and she became a very well-known actress. And that was her first movie, which was Nightmare on Elm Street 3. So it was Providence for her career to take off, and ours too. And it was just a fun video, and plus it's a catchy chorus. You know what I mean?
Oh, definitely, yeah. It's still played a lot on all the time on other rock stations for sure, definitely.
Yeah, I've heard it a few times.
Yeah, and another thing I want to chat with you about, Dokken was also part of the Monsters of Rock tour in '88. Obviously, that summer with Van Halen, Scorpions, Metallica, and Kingdom Come. Just a huge tour package. Was that really stressful for the band? What are your memories of that?
I thought it would be like a lot of competition and all that. But as it turned out, we all just got along. I mean, everybody just did. I think it was healthy because there's all these great bands on one bill. It had never been done before. We were playing stadiums for like 100,000 people. And we all got along great. That was cool, There was no... he's louder than me and I want to be louder than him, and so it was all pretty professional. But it was a huge undertaking with all those bands. I think we had 5, 6 semi-trucks, the lighting, the PA. Oh man, it was a big to-do, financially. And I think they did a couple after that, but that was the one that everybody went to, that remembers if it's when you were young,
Yeah,
Now
I was one of those young
older.
folks out there watching you guys jam it out here in Buffalo, New York area. Just an amazing show. All the bands sounded amazing that day for sure.
I mean, to buy a ticket to see that, Scorps and Van Halen, and I miss Eddie. That's a bummer. We all miss Eddie. And, and I know the Scorpions from Germany they were friends of mine, so it all worked out really good. The only thing I didn't really like, that Metallica went on before us, and I told my manager I'd rather go on after them.
Right.
And he goes, "Well, you're getting paid more money. You're more famous."
Right.
At that time, we were more famous.
Right.
They hadn't put out the Black Album. That's the one that took them over the top.
Right. Exactly.
Now they're the biggest band in the world, but when they go on before us, it's kind of hard to compete with Metallica. I say it's kind of like opening up for God.
Yeah, they were on their way up at that point for sure, right?
They were right in that. They were in the zone, very committed. They kind of kept to themselves. I didn't see them much, even in the hotels, but when you listen to that record, I wish I would have written it, because our album was good, but to me, that album, the Black Album, every single song was good. There were no bad songs. And here we are, talking about it decades later, and everybody's got their Metallica Sundays and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it was good. It was hard because we played 3 or 4 shows in Texas, and we're playing outdoors, and it was about 108, 110 today. It was really, really hard to stand there sweating, and it was brutal. That's all I can say. It was brutal.
Yeah, I remember the show, like I was saying, in the Buffalo area. It was very, very hot that day, and they were hosing down the audience like they used to do back in the day a little bit. Yeah, just extremely hot, but an amazing tour, definitely.
And we knew that, we had to go 100% no matter what. I mean, I think there's always competition with other bands, but yeah, the good thing was that we all got along, If something happened and other bands' amp blew, they grabbed somebody else's amp, and little things like that. But yeah, like I said, you were in New York, Texas, for some reason there was an unseasonably crazy heat wave during that whole tour.
And it was just super hot. Yeah, no doubt. Well, I also wanted to chat with you. You guys have definitely had your share of ups and downs in Dokken. Even releasing an album called Dysfunctional in '95.
Yeah.
Why do you think the working environment broke down in the band? What do you think that was?
Check this. Do you guys have this in Europe or New York? It's called Liquid Death. Looks like a beer.
I think I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just it's just sparkling water with flavoring. No sugar, no nothing. They're pretty cool. I think the relationship mostly was just drugs were involved in the tour. I didn't personally take drugs, but it seemed like my band was on drugs. The road crew was on drugs. Other bands' crews were on drugs. And I was kind of just oblivious to the whole thing. I was just trying to focus on the show and get some sleep, and long drives in a bus, and people, we got testy. But George and I kind of never got along from the first record. Things are better now. He's coming to play. He's playing with us in 3 days in St. Louis, and we get along. When you get older, you get mellower.
Yeah, definitely have a different perspective on things. So we should say, sure, definitely for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I kept thinking, the more famous we get, the more money we're making, maybe the more people would chill out in the band, but they didn't.
Right.
George always wanted to do his own thing. I think Jeff Pilson always wanted to be a singer. And Mick was just like, well, you guys work it out,
Right.
And in fact, that's when we broke up. On the last show of Monsters of Rock was in Mile High Stadium, and then we did the show, and after that, we had a meeting with the record company. We said we're done.
Gotcha. Well, you went on to do some solo work. You came back with Up From the Ashes in 1990,
Yep.
which was an outstanding album and kind of like a rebirth for you, really, with that when that came out.
I think it was a bummer. I was proud of that record, you know. Up From the Ashes has great songs on it. Had amazing, musicians like Billy White, young kid, 18 years old from Texas. I had John Norum from the band Europe. We got Peter Baltus, from Accept. We had Mickey D. It was a great band when we, went out with that band. But that maybe you were too young. You're probably in high school. But the whole bummer was the grunge came in.
Yeah.
Which I have nothing against grunge. It just seemed like there was a backlash on rock and roll because some of the bands were getting too glammy and their hair was too big and too much makeup and looking like drag queens. And I think that kind of put a fork in that genre.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I followed all your music and all that music very closely. And yes, that was kind of the dividing time. All of a sudden you have this band that comes out, grunge, and they think people want to be entertained by wearing sneakers and look like they walked out of a garage, was kind of my opinion of it. And the music was different, and I guess that's what people were looking for, something different at that time. But it definitely wasn't how things had been. And it, like you said, a lot of the bands that were earmarked with that type of hair metal or heavy metal, all of a sudden it was like, yeah, all those bands got the brakes put on. It's like, yeah, we're not doing music like this now. We're doing it different.
Which made no sense to me. I mean, a good song's a good song. A good band's a good band. But all of a sudden, a lot of radio stations are like, but you're not playing this doom and gloom kind of songs. We don't want to do it anymore. We were always kind of an up band, up tempo, and more rock. But all of a sudden, it changed overnight, for some reason. And if I'm going to go to a concert, I don't want to hear anybody complaining,
Right.
Lyrically, about I had a tough childhood and I'm all bummed out. You go to have a good time. So that was kind of weird when the grunge came in. So then we just kept touring, and then we kind of took a hiatus for till about 96. But it happened, and now it's back. I just played 2 nights ago. It was sold out in New Mexico, and we played another gig about 4 nights ago. It was sold out. And that's why I'm so hoarse. That's why I can't talk much today. I got laryngitis. I must have been snoring. When I'm tired, I snore like crazy.
I understand. Yeah. And you're right. All this music has definitely had like a second life to it. And I think that's amazing. Some of the folks that didn't get to see so many legendary bands are getting that chance to do that now. And some folks like myself who have seen all this music, it's great to see it come alive once again, one more time.
Yeah, I thought maybe that, you look at the 50s, you look at the 60s, it was pop, psychedelic, things change, people change, but I thought, okay, this is it. It's going to be Alice in Chains, and Metallica and bands like that. And it swung back around now that I can't even get in the radio. I get in my car every time, listen to the radio, and they're playing a Dokken song, or they're playing Scorpions, or they're playing Whitesnake, or they're playing Winger. There's just things went back the other day. And so I'm not complaining. I'm happy when I see it. The other night I thought, oh boy, this place is far away in the middle of nowhere, this venue. And it was sold out. And I asked the fans, I always get this, a lot of people, when I sign an autograph, they always say the same thing. You were the sound of my youth. You were the music of my youth. So I think there's some nostalgia, built into those 80s bands. But I agree that when the bands when it became more important about their makeup and their hair and not the songs, I think people just figured these are all cookie cutter bands, I'm going to out mascara the other band.
Right. Yeah. And you're 100% right. All this music is what I like to call like the bookmarks of our life, the history of our life. with all that music that we grew up listening to that you guys made, like you were saying, bands like Scorpions and Whitesnake and all those huge bands back then, just amazing stuff. So
That
another
was good.
thing.
We were lucky, we're lucky, to mean to interrupt you, because a lot of bands are retiring now.
Right. And that's kind of what I want to talk to you a little bit about too. So in 2010, you revealed that you had undergone vocal surgery. You underwent treatment for cancer, and then you also announced that you're going to be retiring within the year, but possibly do a final EP with George Lynch.
Yeah, we talked about it because he comes on the road and he plays with George Lynch and the Mob. So I said, look, if you want to do an EP, it'd be up to them to do it. I can't play guitar anymore, which is one of my biggest bummers, because if you see my hand, this one's fine, this one doesn't move. That's all I got. So I can't play guitar anymore. It was a botched spinal surgery, and the doctor was a butcher, and so it's just one bad calamity after the other. So I said, well, we'll keep going. I can still sing, but it's just, I don't know what retirement means. When I say I'm thinking about retiring, what I meant was we're going to slow down. We don't want to do 250 shows a year. You get older, you have other interests, right? You want to be home. You want to enjoy your career, all the success you had. You want to be home in the garden and working and building things and stuff like that and renovating a house. And you don't want to live on a tour bus, because we're older now. When I was 30 years old I remember I turned 30 on the Dio tour. I can't even fathom that I turned 30 on the Dio tour. Seems so long ago. But here we are, a lot of bands, Kiss, I can name, there's a plethora of bands that are saying, all right, we had a good ride, we had fun, we were famous, let the youngsters come in and take over.
Yeah. David Coverdale just this week announced that he's going to probably be retiring at this point.
Yep.
You
I just saw that David Lee Roth, he doesn't really he kind of comes and goes. You've got Coverdale. I mean, look, the list is endless. I think I talked to Kip Winger. He was thinking about, he's doing an orchestra album. He's going to retire. George Lynch says he's going to retire. So, but that old stupid saying, you never say never, right? I mean, if we get a big festival in Europe, like Dokken or Swedish Rock or a big festival, we'll probably go do them. But it's different now. When you're 27 years old, you go on the road because you have to.
Right.
Otherwise, you come home, your electricity's off. You go, damn it, I didn't pay the electric bill.
Right. Yeah. But being on the road for like half a year or 8 months, or that's a huge drag on you, living off the bus or living out of hotels. And now it's so crazy expensive to do any of this. It's just, just nuts, just trying to put one together. You can never have like the huge festival like you had back in the day with Monsters. That would be, oh my God, it's so expensive to do something like that nowadays. It would just be crazy.
Well, they have all these new rules now, about. I remember we played with the Scorpions about 8 years ago, and it was in Anaheim, and there was tens of thousands of people trying to get in the venue, and they were x-raying everybody for weapons because of all these things that are going on. And one of the machines broke, so they only let one person in at a time. So we're on stage, and I'm watching people come in, but it didn't get filled up till we were done playing because it took so long to get 30,000 people in there.
Right.
It's very frustrating. I think Europe's a little more lenient on that stuff, but the world has changed, and I don't know why. I mean, I can't even watch the news every night. Somebody got shot. A policeman got shot. ICE is tracking down the illegal aliens, and the world's changed. We have a new president who has his own agenda, and everything's changed. So you either roll with it or you just say, I'm done,
Yeah,
So we'll see what happens.
yeah, definitely a very crazy world. Well, we hope to see that one last EP come out from you with George and do that. And I know you're still doing shows out there, so that's tremendous, man. So great to hear that.
Yeah, it's fun, and George and I, we get along, and it's people like to see him up there play a couple Dokken songs, and but you get older and it becomes harder and harder to play, and then you come home and you want to rest for a couple days. But you're right about to go on tour now. It costs a fortune. Gas is tripled in price. Bus rentals have tripled in price. Hotels have tripled in price. It's like it's kind of a negative return. Now when we play, it's kind of just for fun. I've done 100 shows this year so far. That's a lot of shows for me. So we've done 100, and we have another one in 2 days. And I said, let's take a break for the holidays. So we're going to take a break for the holidays. But I wouldn't say retire. If those guys want to get together and write me some music, I'd write the lyrics and sing it. And I'll participate like I always did. So that's where we're at now.
Excellent, excellent. We look forward to hearing with that. Well, I just want to thank you so much, Don, for speaking with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for even being interested in talking to the old guys. We're the old guard. Now it's the new guard.
Yeah, well, all right, folks. So that wraps up this episode of Talking About Rock. Thanks to my guest today, Don Dokken. And to our listeners, we hope you're doing your part by keeping the torch alive and supporting live music wherever you are. Don, again, thank you so much.
Take care, boss.